Hi, this is Cedar Lee. I'm going to show you today this video of a time-lapse of me painting a 36-inch by 60-inch acrylic painting called Golden Memories. And it's going to be a painting of a forest near my home. And so I'm just going to show you the painting process, and while you're watching that, I'm going to talk a little bit about art critiques. This topic, of course, is interesting to all of us artists who already are familiar with the idea of art critiques and have probably had some experience with art critiques. And it's also might be interesting to anybody who wants to understand the creative process or something a little more about the lives of artistic people and our process through our lives and how we develop over time. I would argue that the group art critiques in my college art classes were one of the most valuable parts of my art education. And I think that a well-organized art critique in the right kind of group setting can help you see things in your work that might be obvious to other people, but that you can't see because you're too close to the problem and you've been staring at it too long to have a good perspective. And they can also make you aware of the greatest strengths that naturally exist in your artwork. And that tells you which things are working well so you can purposely keep doing the thing that you're good at. And knowing what you are already doing well is a key part of developing your unique artistic style. So critiques can be very valuable. After college, after I had been working as a professional artist for many years, I missed the group critique thing, and I decided to create my own critique group of a group of professional artists in my city. And that was a very different experience, and I would say equally valuable. We had a feeling of camaraderie, and like we were all in it together. We were all working towards creating the best artwork that we could, and it was really interesting to see all the different artists and how they do things so differently, coming at things from their own angle. And every artist has like their own special value. And a critique group can really help you see your own value and develop it in a purposeful direction. So I'm really in favor of art critiques under certain circumstances. So at that time, when I was running this artist critique group, we had, I don't know how many members, it was more than 20 people who came regularly. And I had reached out to a fellow professional artist and asked her if she wanted to join us. And she politely declined and said, no, at this point in my life, I don't really feel the need for that kind of feedback. And at that time in my life, I was so hungry for feedback about my art that this idea of just not needing any was kind of a surprising idea for me, and it stuck with me. And I ended up moving away, grew out of that whole critique group thing, and kept doing my art over the years. And now I myself am finding myself at a similar stage to that other artist, where now I might sometimes ask, another person just for a second set of eyes, like a very specific question about what a painting might be missing. Like, does this part need something? Or what do you think about this one little part? But I don't really feel the need for comprehensive critiques of my artwork or any kind of in-depth feedback from other people at this time. And with this perspective of having gone through all these different phases, I think this is part of the ebb and flow of having a lifelong creative path. We go through phases where we become more or less independent with our art. People have different ideas about the purpose of art. I'm talking about visual art here. Of course, this applies to music and other forms of art as well. But with visual art, you can definitely use your creativity as a tool, like only for your own pleasure and your own health, or just to explore yourself introspectively. Sure, you can totally do that. But my perspective and my relationship with creating art has always been that art is meant to be shared. If you make it for only yourself, you're missing out on the other half of the equation. Art is a form of communication, and it doesn't exist in a vacuum. So to me, the viewer does matter. And at this point, I've done all kinds of different creative projects in my career where I've worked independently, I've created work on spec, I've done commissioned work, I've done collaborative work, I've worked on big projects where I'm only giving one little piece of the project. I've done all kinds of things. And in any creative endeavor where you are a creator and you're sharing your work with the outside world, there's always this push and pull between your own inner vision for your work and the feedback and desires of others, the outside. So getting outside opinions on your art can be very, very valuable. Sometimes another person with that fresh set of eyes can point something out to you that is exactly the thing you need to hear to take your work to the next level. But at the same time, it's your art. Ultimately, your inner vision for what you want to happen in your own work always trumps everything else. So don't ever forget this. If you feel like you're not strong in your own vision, usually the answer isn't to first go to other people, but instead go back to your studio and make a lot more work. Always ask questions of yourself and go as far as you can by yourself before you ask questions of someone else. That's my rule. So sometimes when you're working on a project where you have to take other people's opinions into account, you need to believe in yourself and advocate for your own vision. This is a lot easier to do if you've worked enough to have that strong vision in your mind. And sometimes just because someone else can't see what you can see in your mind's eye doesn't mean that you're not onto something great. Maybe you just need to push that vision a little further or explore it a little more or in a different way, and then other people will see it too. And sometimes what you're doing in your work just isn't another person's cup of tea, but that doesn't mean it's bad. This happens with art. Different people are attracted to different things, and that subjectivity is something inherent in art. No matter what you make, no matter how masterful, there will always be some people who love it and some people who don't get it at all. So there are two things I would advise all artists to keep in mind when it comes to getting critiques of your artwork. Number one, and this is some of the best advice I've ever heard, is that saying, don't take criticism from anyone who you wouldn't go to for advice. So for most of us, when we want to improve our art, we would go to a more accomplished artist or somebody in our view who is more accomplished than ourselves, whose work that we love. Or we might go to someone who is an expert in some particular area like art materials or particular technique. If we want advice on art business or selling our artwork, we would go to someone who sells art. We would go to someone with a lot of experience in the thing that we need to know about, who's seen a lot of different kinds of things and might have something to say that we don't already know. In other words, this means that almost everyone's opinion about your art is irrelevant. So it's important to always run this filter and ask yourself, is this somebody who I would go to for their advice? And those are the opinions you need to listen to. And the second thing, always keep in mind that balance that exists between your inner and outer worlds, and don't lose sight of either one. In the end, your inner vision is the one you always answer to. So if you do this, it will keep you true to yourself. Your work is going to grow and change over the years if you keep working at it. But if you do this, it will always remain authentically yours. And I think that that is the secret to being a true artist.